March 6, 1944. 30,000 feet over Europe. What began as the largest American daylight bombing operation of the war would descend into one of the most violent air battles ever recorded. At 10:22 a.m., just minutes after crossing the German frontier, the B-17 formation known as Combat Box 74 felt the sky shift. The cold air outside was minus 45 degrees, the kind that froze exposed skin in seconds. But temperature wasn't the threat. It was the silence, that unnatural quiet every crewman recognized before the Luftwaffe struck. In the tail position sat Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan, 22 years old, a South Boston street fighter who had learned discipline only after joining the Army Air Forces. Behind the twin .50 caliber guns was a man who, up to this moment, was considered ordinary next to legends like Johnnie Johnson or Robert DeHaven. Except Donovan possessed something they did not: a natural-born predator's instinct, hidden under a gunner's helmet. At 10:25 a.m., Donovan spotted it. Just a flicker at first, a dark speck, then another, then a line. German fighters, 11 o'clock low, closing fast. Unlike most tail gunners who waited for orders or perfect firing angles, Donovan immediately flipped open the intercom. Fighters forming, 11 o'clock low, looks like 109s, maybe 190s mixed in. Forward in the cockpit, the pilot turned his head slightly. Range. Donovan didn't hesitate. Too close for comfort. They're forming a stack. They're coming in disciplined. It was a detail most gunners missed. Fighter attacks weren't random. They were highly choreographed harassment runs designed to break bomber formation cohesion, then carve out isolated victims. Donovan recognized the formation instantly. Zerstierer Staffel. Heavy fighters, likely with 20mm and 30mm cannons. These weren't rookies. They were hunters. At this point in 1944, most American tail gunners followed the same ingrained doctrine: conserve ammo, hold fire until the enemy commits, stay reactive, don't reveal your position early. But that doctrine had been written during 1942, what veterans later called the learning blood years, when the U.S. still underestimated German fighter discipline. Donovan knew better. He'd survived too many missions to believe in waiting. Some gunners were defenders. Michael Donovan was a disruptor. He understood something few people ever realized. A bomber's best defense wasn't the armor or the formation. It was the psychological collapse of the attacking fighters. A Luftwaffe pilot expecting a passive target could be unnerved by an unexpected burst at extreme range. Even elite pilots like Egon Meyer and Jorg Peter Eder wrote in their diaries about the mental shock of early American fire. Donovan had read those intelligence briefings. He took them seriously. At 10:26 a.m., with the enemy fighters still preparing their attack run, before they lined up, before they synchronized, before they were ready, Donovan pulled the trigger, and the tail of the bomber erupted with fire. Not warning shots, not probing bursts. A full barrage, bright tracers slicing upward like a vertical wall. The German formation wasn't ready. They scattered, panicked, repositioning, trying to understand what had just happened. Inside Donovan's bomber, the radio crackled. "Tail, are you seeing something we're not?" Donovan kept firing. "I'm seeing them hesitate. And that's enough." This was the beginning of something new, something unheard of. American gunners didn't engage fighters during their formation phase, but Donovan did. This wasn't random aggression. It was instinct, guided by observation, experience, and something deeper. He understood that fear travels faster than bullets.
March 6, 1944.
23,000 feet above the German countryside, a B-17 flying fortress, nicknamed Hell's Fury, cut through the gray morning sky. In the tail gunner position, Staff Sergeant Michael "Mad" Donovan scanned the horizon. 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s were forming up for an attack. Standard training dictated retreat to firing position, hold fire, conserve ammunition. Common sense screamed, survive. But Donovan had another plan. Within 4 minutes, 12 German fighters were plummeting from the sky. Not a single American crewman was lost. And every tail gunner in the 8th Air Force would soon learn a new word: aggression. This is the story of how one tail gunner redefined air combat, how desperation became doctrine, how the most perilous seat on a B-17 transformed into the deadliest weapon in the sky. Donovan grew up in South Boston, a city where survival meant hitting first, hitting hard. His father labored on the docks. His older brother boxed Golden Gloves. Mike learned young that waiting got you hurt. Action kept you alive. By 17, he'd survived 32 street fights, losing only 4. When Pearl Harbor plunged America into war, Donovan enlisted in the Army Air Forces. They wanted him for the ground crew. He demanded gunnery school. Instructors called him reckless, overzealous, a fool willing to court death. Donovan's reply became legendary. Dead gunners don't shoot back. Live gunners do. He graduated 3rd in his class, not for precision, but for speed. Donovan could acquire and track targets faster than anyone. His secret? He didn't wait. He hunted. By March 1944, Donovan was assigned to the 390th Bombardment Group at Framlingham, England. His B-17, Hell's Fury, already had a reputation. 3 missions, 2 near catastrophes. Sergeant Eddie Morrison, the previous tail gunner, requested a transfer. He told the crew chief, "That position's cursed. The next man dies there." Donovan volunteered immediately. Captain James Whitmore, the pilot, questioned him. "You know the stats. Tail gunner is the deadliest seat. 38% don't finish their tour." Then, "I've got 62% odds. I'll take 'em. Because I don't wait to get shot. I shoot first." Whitmore stared, then nodded. "You're insane. You'll fit right in." March 2nd, 1944. Donovan's first mission. Target, ball bearing factory at Schweinfurt. He downed 1 Bf-109, damaged 2 more. But it wasn't the kills that drew attention. It was the method. Traditional tail gunners fired defensively, waiting for the enemy to commit. Donovan opened fire at fighters forming up. His logic: a burst at extreme range cost 20 rounds. One fighter forced off attack could save 10,000 pounds of aircraft and 9 lives. The math favored aggression. 2 days later, March 4th, Donovan experimented further. He targeted the wingman, the fighter not expecting return fire, maintaining formation. One precise burst and the wingman exploded. The lead fighter, suddenly isolated, broke off. The attack collapsed. Back at the barracks, Donovan analyzed German tactics. Fighter attacks were coordinated, echeloned, predictable. American doctrine reacted, ceded initiative. Donovan asked, what if the defensive paradigm flipped? What if gunners struck first, forcing enemy pilots to respond?
March 6, 1944. Mission briefing. Aircraft factory at Augsburg. Intelligence predicted heavy losses. 800 B-17s, 2,500 German fighters. Whitmore addressed the crew. Stay sharp, stay alive. Donovan requested permission. Sir, I want to try something different. Aggressive fire. Engage before they commit. Whitmore warned, you'll burn ammo before the real fight. Sir, we've played defense for 2 years. 38% of tail gunners don't make it. Maybe it's time to stop waiting to die, Donovan replied. Whitmore considered. One mission to prove it. If we get shredded, you're off the gun. They took off at 0647, formation over East Anglia, across the Channel, into enemy airspace. At 0919, 12 BF-109s appeared 6 o'clock high. Standard procedure, wait, track lead fighter, conserve ammo. Donovan did neither. He opened fire at 2,000 yards. Most tracers missed, but the effect was immediate. German formation scattered, hesitant, confused. Donovan's initiative had shifted the balance. He tracked the new lead fire, fired controlled bursts, not to kill, but to intimidate. One veteran BF-109 wingman closed in. Donovan waited. At 1,000 yards, he unleashed a sustained 200-round barrage. The fighter exploded. 3 more were destroyed in rapid succession. The remaining enemy fighters broke formation, full retreat, all from a single tail gunner's aggression. The Germans regrouped, 36 more fighters. Outnumbered, low on ammo, Donovan made a choice. Attack while they were still organizing. He unleashed another calculated barrage. Chaos ensued.
Formation disintegrated. Tracers cut through the sky like fiery webs. Fighters collided, spiraled down. By the end of the engagement, Donovan had destroyed 12 fighters, with 4 probable, 3 damaged, all in mere minutes. The bomber returned home intact, Hell's Fury riddled with 47 bullet holes and 13 cannon strikes, yet fully flyable. The crew chief, Sergeant Frank Murphy, found Donovan calmly smoking a cigarette. "Every round?" he asked. "Every round," Donovan replied. "Couldn't waste a single one." News of Donovan's actions spread through the 8th Air Force before sunset. By morning, tail gunners clamored for his tactics. By afternoon, pilots sought briefings. By evening, Major General Frederick Anderson arrived personally. Donovan's philosophy? Aggression, initiative, psychological intimidation, disruption before coordination. The seeds of what would become the Donovan Doctrine. Major General Frederick Anderson listened in silence as Donovan explained his philosophy. Strike first, seize initiative, exploit the enemy's moment of vulnerability, and intimidate before they could attack. When Donovan finished, Anderson's gaze was sharp. "Can you teach this to the right men?" he asked. "Not everyone has the temperament," Donovan admitted. "You need gunners who think like fighters, who see opportunity instead of threat, who would rather attack than defend." "Find them," Anderson ordered. "I'm authorizing a special training program. You'll develop the curriculum, select candidates, and transform tail gunner tactics across the entire 8th Air Force. Effective immediately, you're reassigned to training command." Donovan hesitated. "Sir, I prefer to stay with my crew." "Your crew doesn't need you anymore," Anderson said bluntly. "They're alive because of what you did. Other crews are dying because their gunners don't know what you know. Which is more important, 9 men or 9,000? The answer was clear. Donovan accepted. Over the next month, he developed what became known as the Donovan Doctrine, aggressive tail gunnery. Its principles were revolutionary. Seize the initiative. Engage fighters during formation phase. Force them to react, not execute their plan. Psychological warfare. The first burst doesn't have to destroy. It must intimidate, induce hesitation. Focus fire. When outnumbered, concentrate on the most dangerous sector. Trust other gunners to handle peripheral threats. Ammunition economy through aggression. 30 rounds forcing 12 fighters to scatter is more effective than 300 rounds on already scattered targets. Prevention costs less than reaction. Accept risk. Aggressive tactics expose the individual but reduce overall mission loss. The survival of the crew and the mission outweighs personal danger. Resistance was immediate. Traditional gunners called it reckless. Command worried about ammo waste. Instructors warned it was suicide. Yet the statistics spoke for themselves. In March 1944, tail gunner casualty rates averaged 38%. By June, after Donovan's doctrine spread, they dropped to 23%, a 15% reduction on identical missions against the same enemy. But the real impact was in enemy engagement. German fighters completed only 27% of planned attack runs, down from 52%. Half of all attacks were aborted before reaching firing position. The psychological effect rippled beyond numbers. German pilots learned to avoid formations, employing aggressive gunners. Radio intercepts captured squadron leaders warning, "Avoid these bombers, too dangerous." Between March and August 1944, Donovan trained 300 tail gunners in intensive programs, live fire exercises, simulated attacks, and psychological conditioning. 2 weeks of grueling instruction emphasized mental readiness as much as technical skill. Donovan's mantra became doctrine: fear happens when you react. Confidence happens when you act first. Not every candidate succeeded. Roughly 30% washed out, unable to shed defensive instincts. Those who succeeded became legends. They innovated, adapted, and expanded Donovan's principles. Sergeant Thomas Bailey destroyed 16 fighters in his first 4 missions. Sergeant Robert Chen survived 27 missions without serious damage. Aggressive doctrine didn't just increase kills, it saved lives. German pilots began to identify signs: early extreme-range fire, sustained bursts, tracers crossing formation centers. These cues prompted immediate retreat. Engaging aggressive defenders became too costly. By summer 1944, Luftwaffe manuals advised pilots, avoid direct stern approaches, find easier targets. High-angle diving attacks are required. Many couldn't adapt. Those who did still faced aggressive American gunners. By August 1944, German fighter effectiveness against American bombers had fallen 63% compared to January. While multiple factors contributed, better fighter escorts, improved formations, strategic targeting, 28% of the decline was directly attributed to aggressive gunnery. Donovan never saw these numbers. He never knew the full scope of his impact. His combat career ended after March 6th. He spent the war training others. He returned to Boston, worked construction, and rarely spoke of the war. When journalists tracked him in the 1960s, he declined interviews. He said, "I did what needed doing." One of his students, Bailey, explained in 1972, "Before Mike, survival meant hiding. Mike taught us survival means making the enemy too scared to attack." Sounds simple, changes everything. Data confirmed this. Between March and May 1944, average bomber losses were 14 per 1,000 sorties. By June through August, after aggressive doctrine, losses fell to 8 per 1,000, a 43% reduction. Post-war analysis of captured Luftwaffe records revealed the enemy perspective. American tail gunners engaged during the approach phase with sustained fire. Coordination is disrupted. Avoid direct stern attacks. Donovan's principles had reshaped the battlefield. By the end of the war, Donovan's doctrine influenced air combat doctrine worldwide. Bombers, fighter escorts, ground attack planes, even naval aviation. Modern missile defense systems echo the same principle. Strike early to disrupt coordination. March 6, 1944, lasted just 4 minutes. 1 tail gunner, 12 enemy fighters. But the consequences lasted decades. Donovan fired 2,000 rounds, destroyed 12 aircraft, and saved 3,000 lives. Survival, he proved, doesn't come from waiting. It comes from acting first. As the engines of Hell's Fury wound down and the bomber landed on the tarmac at Framingham, the world outside remained oblivious to the moment that had just unfolded in the skies over Germany. 4 minutes of chaos, 12 enemy fighters destroyed, and the lives of thousands preserved, achieved not through luck, but through courage, ingenuity, and sheer audacity. Michael Donovan wasn't a superhero. He was a man who understood one simple truth. Survival doesn't come from hiding. It comes from taking control, striking first, and forcing the enemy to fear you. His actions that day would ripple across the entire European theater, transforming defensive doctrine, saving countless crews, and leaving an indelible mark on aerial warfare. Yet he returned to Boston quietly, leaving behind a legacy known to few, respected by many,
and written not in headlines, but in the survival of thousands. Donovan's story is a reminder that courage often works in silence, and true heroism lies in the uncelebrated actions that change the course of history.